Hi everyone, today we're going to be making this fantastic, beautiful, shabby chic floral birthday card from our Fleur Francais CD collection. So I've gone ahead and printed off the two sheets from the Fleur Francais CD, and I've gone for the blue one obviously, with the yellow rose on it, because I think this is a fantastic kit for somebody who is celebrating a golden anniversary, and you want to do something a little bit different, a little bit special for them. So these are the bits. I have my my two main toppers, I have my sentiments, I have my backing paper and my insert piece. I've got some decorative faux ribbon strips there which we're going to be using too, but I'm going to be adding to this as well. You may have noticed on the front one, or the first one that I showed you, not the first one, the completed one that I showed you, that it had washi tape elements to it. So that's what these are. Now I have about a dozen to 2 dozen rolls of washi tape just sitting in a tub, and I don't really use them that often because I'm not really sure most of the time what to do with them, or most people don't really know what to do with them. So I'm going to show you something that you can do with them today that might give you an idea to use up some of your stash. So these are just 3 random rolls of washi tape that I've had in my collection for quite some time, and I'm going to incorporate these into the design of the card. So before I can show you that, I need to cut all these bits and pieces out. So I'm going to go off and cut all these pieces out, and I'll be right back in a few seconds. So I've cut out most of the bits that I'm going to be using. I haven't popped out any of the sentiments just yet. So I have my main topper, my insert panel, my 2 strips of, well, 3 strips of faux ribbons. But let's just go back to that insert panel. Now, as you can see, it's got concave corners, but I don't have a concave corner punch. Well, actually I do. I've just got a standard 3/8 circle punch, and all I have to do is just push that in, line up the corners and pop them out. So we don't need a specific punch for doing concave corners, because we can just use our existing circle punches. Now, depending what size punch you've got, you can make these as big as you like or as small as you like. So I'm just going to nick out the corners. There we go. So we now have punched out concave corners. Again, if I had a larger circle punch to hand, I could punch the larger ones as well to make it, you know, a bit more pronounced, if you like. So that's our insert panel piece, that's our main backing paper, and it looks as though I need just to trim a tiny bit off the top of there, just because I've got a bit of a white line, and I do want that white line. But I can go in, well, I'm going to go around them in a minute anyway, but let's just trim that. Take a thin sliver off, and there we go. So white line now gone. Okay, so we have our backing paper. Now this will cover completely and utterly the front of a 6x6 card. So it's up to you whether you want to trim it down a bit, or whether you want it to do the whole of the front card. So I always like a little bit of a white border, so I am going to remove just a few millimeters from the sides. Well, from one side, I'm doing it from the right hand side, and I'm also going to take it from the bottom because I want to keep this kind of pattern in there. So I'm just doing it by eye, but you can do this with your trimmer if you want to do it exact. And I would just take off around about 4 millimeters, 3 or 4 millimeters, and that's going to give you just enough of a little bit of a white border all the way around, just to make that framed. Okay, but before we stick that down, I'm going to bring out the washi tape. So here we go. So I've got 3 different types of washi tape. Now obviously it's a tape, it's on a roll, which means that you're probably going to have lost the end at some point. So I'm just going to peel that off. And this is like an old newsprinty kind of washi tape. Now what I'm going to do is just randomly tear a strip and stick it down. And then just using my knife, I'm going to trim it. And then get rid of that other little piece there. Don't want that. And then take out a second piece. And this time, again, I'm going to tear a piece off, and I'm going to layer that over the top so it doesn't quite match. Now you can trim all this off later if you want to. So we've got staggered edges. Now let me zoom in a little bit so you can see that. There we go. Now some of this washi tape is a little bit translucent, so it does, you do get some of the background from it. And I'm going to put a third piece. Let me see, let me turn that around, because there is writing on this, so I'm going to try and get it. There we go. And then what you can do is just turn it over, and you can either just fold it over or trim it off. It's really up to you. And I'm going to do the same again this time. So I'm going to take, let's just see, let's take that piece where we've got our birdie flying. See, this is where you always end up losing the ends of the roll. See, it's a good job I've got fingernails. There you go. So I'm just going to tear one more piece and put that vertical. And I'm going to take a piece of the other one, just a small bit, and I'm going to also put that over. Try and make sure that it's straight, because it does look better when it is straight. There we go. Now, when we add our topper to this, you're going to see that little bit of extra texture. I know it's not a lot, but you can also add some more if you want to across here. Entirely up to you. Which I'm going to do. I will add some more in a bit, but I'm going to try and bring these pieces in as well first of all. So I need some double-sided tape. So I'm just going to take some double-sided tape, and I'm going to run some tape on the back of that. You probably can't see me now because I'm off shot. Let me widen that back out again. There we go. So I've put some double-sided tape on the back. Now all I'm going to do is just take a pair of scissors and just maybe snip that, and then take the back off. And of course it never wants to come off when you're filming. Never wants to come off. Just be careful if you're doing this at home. That's it. Take the backing off, and then it's slightly wider, so I'm just going to fold that sticky tape back on itself, and then I'm going to add some of that washi tape effect coming in from this side across there. So I'll take another piece of that lovely sort of Parisian birdsong one, and I'm going to add that as a cross piece. Now you see that's just folded in on itself. It's not strong adhesive, so it doesn't really take much to get it peeled back off again. And again, I'm just going to use the same that I used before, just a very, very small piece, and stick that over. And then this time I'm going to use the brown one, and I'm going to put that over, so it's almost like weaving a pattern across. And I'm going to put that up to about there. So again, what you could do, you could use wet glue, or you can use whatever glue you want. So that's a Zig glue pen, that's the two-way glue pen. Permanent when it's blue. If you leave it to dry, it'll go transparent, and then it's temporary. So we've created some movement on that back, so that when we put our topper on, you've got a nice sort of broken effect. If you wanted to, you could add a little bit more coming down here. You could utilise the rest of this, which I think I will do. Again, there's no rules about how to do this. It's really what pleases you. It's, if you look at it and you go, yeah, I like that, then it's right. If you look at it and go, I think it looks a hot mess, then, you know, you can always change it. There's nothing to say. It's your card. When you give it to somebody, they're not going to go, well, I think that's in the wrong place, are they? Because they're not going to know any different. I'm going to take that off, and I'm going to put that there, like so. In fact, I like the idea of the brown. What have I done with it? Where's it gone? Have I hidden it? Oh, look! What happened to that? It's just disappeared. It's disappeared into an alternate dimension, completely and utterly. Mind you, saying that, you're probably watching this at home going, well, I saw where it went. But I didn't. There it is. There you go. See? See? Honestly. Right, I can see a little bit of a line there, so I'm just going to trim that down. It probably isn't a line, because it's probably just where the pattern, there's like a ginghamy pattern. There we go. And I'm just going to add a little bit of glue into the back of there. And then just to bring that pattern in, I'm going to add it about there. And then I can just trim that off with a pair of scissors. So that adds a little bit more texture, a little bit more depth to the backing paper. So now when we add our topper, there's all that going on at the bottom. Okay, so that fits over the top of there. Now what I want to do first of all is I just want to add a little bit of distress to it. So I have my mini ink blending tool, I have my vintage photo distress ink. So all I'm going to do is just go around the edge, and that will tidy and tie everything in. The washi tape will pick up the ink because it is only paper. It's like self-adhesive tissue on a roll, if you've never seen washi tape before. Well, you may have seen it but not known what to do with it. So that's the back. I'm also going to carry that in onto the inside. So all I'm doing is I'm just flicking that. You can bring it in that way, but I'm just going to flick it with the blending tool because I just want to catch the edges. And it also hides those white lines or the white edges of the card, so if you have done a bit of a wobble, it really didn't matter. Okay, so again, this time I'm bringing in the topper and I'm just catching those edges, and that's just going to hide any of those little white lines that you may have imperfections in the cutting out. Covers a multitude of sins, but also adds a kind of nice little frame to the topper. Can you see how that's added that darkness all the way around? Just brings it all together, and then we're going to do the same thing with the back. As I say, this is just a vintage photo. If you don't have vintage photo but you've got tea dye, that's just as good. That creates a lovely sort of aged effect all the way around. There you go. And if you want to go darker, go darker. If you don't want any at all, then you don't have to. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. So there's our dual layered topper. How pretty is that? I love the way the darkness contrasts against the blue. The brown and the blue work really, really well. So what I'm going to do with that now is I'm going to just flip that over, and I'm going to add some foam pads to the back. I'm not going to go mad. So I'm just going to add 3 of those, and then I'm going to add 3 to the back of my main topper. Like so. Actually, I think I'll add just a couple more. 1 at the bottom and 1 at the top. That's going to give it some nice depth when we add that to our main topper there. So before we go any further then, let's look at the sentiments. So we have some circle sentiments. Now I think the blue one would work just really well with this. So all I'm going to do is to find a circle punch, the right size, and I think I'm going to do the birthday wishes one. So I'm going to go for a smaller circle at 1 3/8, and I'm just going to nip that out without that double border all the way around. So I've taken that out, and again I'm just going to bring in my distress tool because it's still got some of the ink on it, and that's just going to tie everything together. Okay. Now included in the kit on that sheet you do have a gift tag as well that you could use, and there's also a bookmark that you could make to give as a gift along with the card if you're so inclined. You don't have to, you can put it to one side, you can laminate it and use it for yourself if you want. Now the other thing we cut out was our little handmade heart, and I'm just going to add a little bit of colour to that because I'm going to stick that just on the back when we're finished. and we'll just flick the edges of that just to add some of that colour in. There we go. Yeah, just finishes it off a little bit. And again, you can go as dark or as deep as you want to. Okay, so we're ready to start constructing the card. So just clear a bit of space, and there's our backing paper. So I'm going to stick that down with some wet glue, if I can persuade it to come out of the bottle today. Yes, there you go. And using wet glue does give you that wiggle room. It's almost becoming a catchphrase, that, isn't it? Wiggle room. And then I'm going to drop that onto the card front, like so. These are very quick and easy cards to make, and if you're making cards to sell, then these are perfect, because you can do 2 or 3 of these, 3 or 4 of these. You can just print them out, cut them all out, and then you can literally just stick them all together, put your washi tape on wherever you want to, and do them as like a production line. You can get these done in next to no time, and they do look very, very effective. But again, if you want to go a bit further with that and add in some lace, you can add paper flowers to it. You know, it's entirely up to you. Now I'm just going to put that about there, right in the middle, but I think it needs something coming from the top, so I'm going to grab another piece of washi tape, and I'm just going to add a piece, just a small bit, just coming down about there, and I'm just going to give it a rub, and then I think we'll add another piece of that just to tie it all together. I'm going to put that next to it. So you can always change and alter your design as you're going along. It's entirely up to you how you finish it all off. So I'll get the glue, and I'm just going to line it up with the top. And now you see I've done that at exactly the same level, purely by accident. So I want to cut that down just a little bit, because I don't want it to be level. I want it to overlap and be at a different point. There we go. And because I've used wet glue, I can just manoeuvre it slightly. Okay, how's that looking? That's looking better. Lovely. So I'm just going to put that slightly offset top left, because I want to leave a little bit of space down at the bottom here to put my sentiment. So I'm going to lay that down there, just making sure I've got it as straight as I can. Get my topper, make sure I've got it the right way up, and lay that down with an equal border all the way around, and then grab my sentiment. And again, you could mat the sentiment if you wanted to onto a piece of cardstock. Just punch a hole or punch a circle a little bit bigger. Now I'm going to tuck that just there, right on top. Actually, I think I'll put it just there. Tuck it underneath, a little bit of an angle, and there you go. Now, haven't quite finished yet, because I am going to add a little bit of embellishment to that, but that's looking pretty lovely. So just flip that open, and with my glue add my insert panel. It's not going to go too mad, it's not going to go anywhere. And again, if you wanted to, you could add some washi tape on the inside just to tie it all together, but that's entirely your own personal preference. but I think I'm going to. Clean those scissors up a little bit. I'm just going to take a little piece of that leftover blue and cream, and I'm going to add a little bit of glue. And I'm going to lie that up with the edge of the insert panel, and then just take a small piece of the birdie washi tape, not a big bit, but I do want to make sure I get one of the birds on, so I'll just remove that piece that doesn't have many on, just a small bit, and then I'm going to stick that just underneath and overlapping like so. There we go. So the front ties in with the back. Very cool. Pop it over, and then I have my handmade just for you. Add a little bit of glue on there, and then I can stick that to the back. Another little piece, and then what I can do with this is I can now grab some gems or some pearls. He says, frantically looking around to see where they are. So I've got some pearls. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use, I've got plain white ones down there, or I've got some gold effect ones there. Now I think the gold ones will work really well with the browns, so I'm going to put a little row of 3 brown pearls just in that corner, one there, one there, and one there. And there you go, one Fleur Francais shabby chic golden anniversary card, or a birthday card.